Hello students, welcome to EasyElimu Learning Simplified. My name is Mr. Stanley Ombogo. These students are welcome to another exciting session that we are about to have. And in this session, we are basically going to look at the character portrayals, of the characters that we have in the first episode of An Artist of the Floating World, that is the October 1948. So in this episode, we have a number of characters, both major characters and minor characters. So we are going to look at all of them, that is starting with some of the major characters that we have. Sometimes we might not follow the order as such, but what is most important is looking at all the characters and their character traits as portrayed in the episode. So we have a number of characters, just like I have said. That is, we have Masuji Ono, who is the narrator and the protagonist. There is Ono's wife, Michiko. We have Ono's father. There is Ono's younger daughter, Noriko. We have Setsuko, Ishiro, Suichi, Kuroda. There is also Chichi Matsuda. We have Dr. Saito. There is Mrs. Kawakami. We also have Yaonari Nakahara. There is also Shintaro, and lastly Jiro Miyake. So those are some of the characters that we are going to look at their character traits as indicated or as shown in the first episode, that is October 1948. So let's start with the first character, that is Masuji Ono. So dear students, remember that Masuji Ono is the narrator and protagonist in the novel. He is an elderly artist, a father and grandfather at the time. He narrates the events in the novel. So the story sets when his main concern is the marriage negotiations of his daughter, Noriko, that is his youngest daughter. So in the episode, Ono is portrayed as so the first character trait that we come across is that Ono is hardworking, zealous, and industrious. So this is so because we are told that he works so hard in art until his earning enable him to buy Sugimura's house. So the Sugimura's house was sold to him simply because of his hard work and also the respect that the Sugimuras had for him. So he renovates his house after the war when he notes it has been ruined. So he says he had made progress in restoring its early appearance. So another thing is that he testifies before Matsuda that he had enough wealth, and again he had worked hard in the villa and at Takeda's, even when they needed many paintings. So he says he commanded considerable respect for his output, was unchallengeable, that is in terms of both quality and quantity, meaning that he could work very fast and still produce quality paintings. So another thing is that Ono is patronizing and a male chauvinist. So he tells Ishiro he is tired of talking to women all the time and wants to talk to Ishiro, who is a boy. So he also tries to force Ishiro to take his art, but fails. From what Noriko comments, Ono was tyrannical and used to order them around. So another thing is that when talking to Ishiro about the film, he insinuates that Setsuko and Noriko watch, they will be scared because they are women. That is, if they go with them to the theater to watch the movie or the film that Ichiro earlier saw on a movie poster. So he insinuates that if Setsuko and Noriko watch the film, then they will be scared because they are women. So again, Setsuko seems shrewd in her father's presence. So he quits from Takeda's, again indicating that with his ambition, he must look for his livelihood elsewhere instead of toiling under his teacher. So another thing about him is that he is focused, ambitious, and responsible. So Masuji Ono reveals that his father denied him his interest in the painting career, which he still pursued regardless. So he shares how his father rejects his early studies with Morisan, but later Ono works with the nationalist government in the creation of wartime paintings and become the uploaded subject of prizes. So these praises came, that is before the war began. But remember, later on, Ono is seen as one of the traitors who, made several youths die or lose their lives during the war. So Ono also reveals that although his teacher Morisan destroyed some of his paintings and told him to bring the two last ones or leave the villa, his urge to explore the new world of art makes him leave and try his luck elsewhere. So again, that supports, uh, Ono being focused, ambitious, and responsible as a trait. So another thing is that Ono reveals that he acquired Akira Sugimura's house so that the marriage prospects of his children be good. He also takes it as his responsibility to renovate his house after the war. So remember, that is an illustration we also used when trying to talk about how hard work and industrious Ono is. So another thing is that Ono quits from Takeda's, again indicating that with his ambition, he must look for his livelihood elsewhere instead of toiling under his teacher. So he does not see how he should work and not earn loyalty. We are also told, dear students, that Ono is kind. So Ono sees it as his responsibility to defend Tortoise when everyone else is against him. So remember, Tortoise was also one of the students who stayed at the villa. So he was slow and was not really good at painting. So Ono defended him when everyone else was against him. So Ono himself says it is rare to find such kindness among colleagues. Again, he recommends Tortoise to Morisan as a unique artist, and Tortoise considers such an extreme kindness. So Ono also recommends for Shintaro's brother, even though he hardly knows him. That is when we remember this when Shintaro and the brother visits, they visit Ono to show some gratitude as a result of the recommendation that he gave the brother. So Ono is also opportunistic, schemer, and strategist. So we are told in the novel and in this episode that Ono says in the story that when his circumstances seemed to improve with each month, his wife had begun to press him to find a new house. So then he heard of the procedure Sugimura were using to sell their house and tried his luck, and finally he got it. So that is when he narrates how he was able to, get the house they are living in right now. So again, he used his position as a member of the Arts Committee of the State Department to make Mijihidari, which was a famous haunt. And again, that is in that place he had a table that was reserved for him and his pupils. So Ono is also said to be evasive. That is when the Sugimuras come to him and inform him that they would have to conduct closer investigation of his background and credentials. He does not see anything objectionable about it. Again, when his wife views the proposals as negative, he tells her that there is no harm in it and they have nothing they would want them not to discover, and whatever they will find might be to their advantage. So Ono testifies that he has never at any point in his life been very aware of his own social standings. He does not see why both Miyake and Suichi were emotional about men who lived even though they had taken part in supporting the war. So Miyake and Suichi were against the men who still lived and had taken part in supporting the war that led to their peers dying and losing their lives. So he does not again understand why they call such men cowards. So during Kenji's burial, Ono does not seem to show any grief directly. He does not see why people can beat an idiot like Hirayama on grounds of singing patriotic songs to praise the war of Japan. So remember, these were songs that were composed uh, way back, that is before the war began. So Hirayama was beaten simply because he still sang, such songs even after the war. So when Ono meets Dr. Saito, dear students, he avoids talking about marriage negotiations because they were just at early stages. So all those are illustrations of the trait that we have just mentioned. So another character trait portrayed by Masuji Ono is that he is admirable and respectable. So he testifies that his students always respected him. And again, daughters of Sigumira tell him that they have decided to give him the house on grounds purely of good character and achievement. And again, remember that the house was not given to Masuji Ono because he was the highest bidder. No, what the daughters of Sigumura were looking at is simply someone who was respectful and also of good character and achievement, because that is what their father uh, would have preferred. So again, many people, including the elderly daughters of Sigumura, address Masuji Ono as Mr. So he also reveals the admiration Shintaro had towards him that he made that had made him recommend someone. So apart from that, we also learn that Matsuda had come for him to the villa because he admired his work. So another illustration is that after realizing that other colleagues are tormenting Tortoise, he defends him on matters of integrity. So Ono is also portrayed as keen and observant. So the illustrations are as follows. First, Ono observes the daughters of Sugimura. That is when they come to his house to inform him that they had decided to sell the house to him, as being too haughty, gray-haired. And that he says by saying, I mean, in the novel, he says that I received a visit one afternoon from two haughty, gray-haired ladies who turned out to be the daughters of Akira Sugimura. So that shows how keen and observant he is. So another thing is that once Sugimura's daughters inform him that their father was a cultured man who respected artists, he makes inquiries on the same and ascertains that the man had supported a lot of exhibitions. So he also discovers that the odd way of selling the house was caused by bitter arguments amongst Sugimura's children, and they had financial pressures too. So that is Sugimura's daughters did not all come into terms or reach an agreement of selling the father's house, but we are made to understand that they later decided to sell it to someone who is respectable and an achiever also, because they had got some financial constraints. So Ono also observes that after acquiring Sugimura's house, some of his relatives were hostile towards him, and instead of greeting him, they would stand and interrogate about the state of the house. So we are also told in the novel that when one of the Sugimura's daughter visits him, he realizes that she is emotional to be back to the house because her eyes roam involuntarily around the room, and she occasionally pauses abruptly in the midst of one of her measured and formal interrogations. So again, we are told that Ono observes that Setsuko is uncomfortable with Noriko's frank and blunt statements about her father. He also observes that Setsuko's gaze turns demurely away and she gives him an inquiring look. Then he also observes how restless Ichiro is and decides to talk to him. So Ono also observes his daughter Setsuko during one of her visits and notes that she is becoming better in her looks and she used to be in that is than she used to be in her adolescence. So Ono also observes that Setsuko is insinuating something about him when she asks about the former marriage negotiations and why Miyake's pulled out, that is previously in the previous year. Then still on the same, we are also told that he observes uh, his father's reception was on the days he used to call him and how he could talk and produce him his business box. Uh, so remember that Ono takes us back through flashback, that is, and reminds us about how the father could, always call him in the reception. That is to show him some business boxes, small fat notebooks with figures, then talk. Talk uh, in a measured grave tone. So this we understand used to happen because Ono's father never wanted him to pursue that is painting as a profession, or generally he didn't want the son to pursue art. He wanted the son to take after him, that is be a businessman like him. So again, we are also told that Ono is keen to see that Miyake is dressed in a tired looking raincoat, a little too large on him. And again, he has a briefcase and he looks like a young man who is accustomed to be bossed around. So that is still on the same, he says that his posture seems to be fixed on the verge of bowing, and he laughs nervously as if he had caught him coming out of some disreputable house. So he also observes that when he met Matsuda, he was lean featured young man. So we are told that that day there were puddles of water and wet leaves falling from the cedar trees overlooking the villa. He was dressed too dandishly to be a policeman. His overcoat was sharply tailored with a huge upturned collar. So that is vividly described on page 99 of the novel. Again, we are also told that while at Masuda's home, Ono is keen to note that Masuda is a different man whose body is broken by ill health, and his once handsome, arrogant face has become distorted by a lower jaw that seems no longer able to align itself with the upper. So still under this trait, we are told that Ono later notices that Masuda's garden is small, arranged with much taste. That is a floor of smooth moss, a few small shapely trees, and a deep pond. He mentioned that Arakawa district had cleanly swept residential houses, set apart and with the general air of countryside. That is cleanly swept residential houses, set apart with the general air of the countryside. So again, we are also told in the novel that when Ono mentions Dr. Saito, he discovers that his daughters stop eating and exchange glances. So another illustration is that Ono notes that Ishiro had carried the raincoat so that when the film gets boring, he does not see. So this is when he takes Ishiro to the theater to watch a movie that he had seen earlier on a poster. So again, Ono recalls a self-portrait Toto had made of himself with such vivid details. So he says it shows a thin young man with spectacles sitting in his shirt sleeves in a cramped, shadowy room surrounded by easels and rickety furniture. So his face caught on one side and by the light coming from the window. So that is also vividly described on page 75 of the novel. So he observes, Ono also observes Kuroda at the old pleasure district and realizes that there were, that there are workmen. So Kuroda turns and watches him expressionlessly in his dark raincoat. The charred buildings behind him, drip and remnants of some gutter make a large rainwater splashed down not far from him. So he has hollowed cheekbones. So that character trait had really a lot of illustrations, dear students, but we just had to look at all of them. So the next character trait that we also come across is that Ono is emotional. So when he finds out the suffering and troubles amongst the Sugimuras, he is set to sympathize with them. And again, he feels that his father made his life dreadful by burning his first paintings. So when one of the Sugumura's daughter visits him, he realizes that she is emotional to be back to the house and feels pity for her that most of the family members were dead now. So again, Ono testifies that um, that his experiences are a wave of irritation to remember how Setsuko had asked him to take precautionary steps so that there are no more disappointments. So another character trait that is also important to note is that Ono is judgmental. So he thinks his father's business is unsound and that his father usually called him uh, around so that in case he inherits it, he does not have questions. Son also thinks that Setsuko is more masculine at her adolescence, uh, and he also thinks that Sugimura's relatives are hostile to him for having bought their house. And still on the trait of Ono being judgmental, Ono thinks Noriko is a bit difficult to handle. So he also thinks that Setsuko is being influenced by Suichi. Um, that is in how she thinks about her father. And Ono also thinks that Suichi is turning Setsuko against her father and even making her speculate about why Miyake is pulled out on marriage negotiations the previous year. Sono is also firm and persistent. We are told that he shares with his students that he learned from Takida and that it was important to question the authority of teachers and never follow the crowd blindly. Let's look at now Ono's wife. That is the second character, Ono's wife. I remember she is also called Michiko. So she is persuasive. So we are told that 15 years ago, she had pressed Ono to find a new house, and she had argued the importance of their having a house in keeping with their status for the sake of their children's marriage uh, prospects. Another thing is that she is a schemer. So Ono's wife is also a schemer. She sees the need of acquiring a good house so that the marriage prospects of their children are good. So another thing is that she is indifferent. Ono testifies that when the wife heard that the Sugimuras were to investigate on Ono before deciding to sell to him the house, she did not take it kindly. So the next character that we are also looking at here is Ono's father. So Ono's father is a minor character because he does not play or take a major role in the novel. So Ono's father is cruel. We are told that he banned all paintings his son Ono had made in the belief that he can prevent him from having a misfortune, that is a misfortunate, sorry, artist's life. He's also patronizing. This is because he commands the career his son should have. And Ono says on that dreadful day, his father's voice was needlessly loud. Sono's father is also superstitious. This is because he believes a wandering priest who predicted that Ono's heart shows his weakness as a person with a little malice, and they would have to combat his laziness, his dislike for useful work. So this makes him stop his son from pursuing art. But we all know that he did not succeed in this because eventually Ono became an artist. So there is the fourth character, that is Noriko. So remember, Noriko is the younger daughter to Ono. So she is depicted as a character that is indignant. So Noriko is a character who is easily angered. She lives with her father in his house, and the father perceives her as exhibiting the personality of an indignant and bad-mannered lady. So there are times she's bitter to her father when the novel begins because she suspects her original marriage arrangement were cancelled as a result of her father's past. So Noriko is also frank, candid, and outspoken. When she first comes to her home and realizes the father has trimmed a maple tree, she quickly asks why he had to destroy it. And later she comments in the presence of her sister Setsuko that the tree is not looking splendid. So again, in the presence of Setsuko, she says her father no longer does anything. All he does is to mop all day. Then she even says she is happy that Setsuko has come around and the father will be off uh, uh, her hands now because he takes a lot of looking after now. So Noriko also comments that Ono is now gentle and domesticated as compared to before. So he's no longer a tyrant who orders them around. And she also meets Miyake, that is a man who pulled out on her in marriage negotiations the previous year, and goes ahead to ask him how he's doing with the new marriage arrangements. So the fifth character again that we are also looking at here is Setsuko. So remember, Setsuko is Ono's elder daughter. She is married to Suichi and has a son named Ishiro. So Setsuko is strong-willed. We are told that she has a strong relationship with her father, Ono, and she helps him in the entire marriage arrangement events and dealing with his guilt that haunts him after the war. She also writes to her father after Kenji's remains are brought from the minefield, indicating that even if the ash was mixed up with others, they must be his comrades and they cannot complain about it. So she is also strong, that is during Kenji's burial, and even talks to her father. Another thing about Setsuko is that she is sensitive. We are told that when her sister Noriko starts to talk bluntly about her father, she looks uncomfortable. She smiles nervously and has shifty gazes. Uh-huh. Though she intends to ask the father about why the previous Noriko's marriage negotiations failed, she apologizes a lot. So the next character here is Ishiro. So Ishiro, remember, is Ono's grandson. That is Setsuko's child and Noriko's nephew. In the present of the novel, he is a young boy with an active imagination. That is about the age of 7 years. So Ishiro is alienated. That is, he sits in a manner that Setsuko thinks is unmannerly, but he finds it fun. Again, he does not want to listen to Ono, who talks of art and instead focuses on cowboy mannerisms. So when he starts drawing, he draws characters he has seen in films. So Ishiro is also outspoken and talkative. He tells off his grandfather on grounds that he is playing a cowboy. So he also reveals that his father says he also reveals what his father says because the war lost. So Ono had to finish his art. Again, he bursts out telling Noriko how scaring the film was. That is the film that they watched with uh, his grandfather, Ono. So Noriko is also, not Noriko, sorry, but Ishiro. Ishiro is also inquisitive. That is, he asks his grandfather about a film poster he saw at the railway station and where monsters come from. So he also asks Ono about his art. The next thing is that Ishiro is brave. So Ono observes that Ishiro is not at all shy like a lot of children his age. Then there is also a character by the name Suichi. So Suichi is the husband to Setsuko and son-in-law to Ono. He symbolizes the new and changing ideals of Japan and is quite candid regarding the role of Ono in the war. So these are the character traits portrayed by Suichi. So the first is that he is emotional. We are told in the novel that during burial of Kenji's remains, he walks away from the service. So he's also opinionated. That is, he says he's opinionated He says real people who caused war walk around as if nothing happened, and young people die for no cause. Then Ono suspects that he has been influencing Setsuko and turning her against him. So Switch is also outspoken. That is, he tells Ono that it is not the likes of Kenji to die, but people who caused the war. There is also this character here, dear students, that we have, that is Kuroda. So Kuroda is presented as a former protege and a student to Ono. So at the beginning, that is at the beginning of the story presented in a flashback, Kuroda has a strong relationship with his teacher. Nonetheless, when Ono condemned the direction of Kuroda's art and later reported the issue to the Committee of Unpatriotic Activities, a dramatic twist follows. So Kuroda is punished and his paintings are banned. So makes uh, this makes Ono his enemy throughout the novel. So uh, Kuroda is hateful. He strongly dislikes Ono, hence rejects meeting or seeing Ono again. So when he sees Ono at a distance, he turns and walks away. He's also loyal. You're told that while working together with Ono, he used to admire Ono and even prospect the great future of this man. So Ono reports that Kuroda had taken part in making speeches of loyal nature to him. Kuroda also praised, sorry, not Kuroda, but Ono also praised him and indicated that they would see their teacher become great and could tell other people about him. So another thing is that Kuroda is emotional and unforgiving. He does not seem to have any interest in meeting Ono. And Ono says he had turned and walked off in another direction when he saw Ono at the tram station. So there is also the another character, the ninth character that we are coming across, that is Chichi Masuda. So Chichi Masuda is visionary. He is presented as a nationalist that encourages Ono to come up with politicized paintings. So he also mocks artists that avoid handling social and political issues in their art. We also told that he considers such artists to be naive. And again, we are made to understand that immediately after the war, Masuda falls sick, and in his old age, he receives Ono as a frequent visitor. So Masuda is also regretful. He regrets for having remained unmarried and lacking heirs to succeed him. So again, we also told that he is proud and arrogant. Unlike Ono, he does not regret the political aspects of his past, and he is happy that he has enough wealth which he can use to help a stuck friend. So still under the same trait, we are told that Ono says Masuda has an arrogant nature. So he's also appreciative. That is, he appreciates the presence of Miss Suzuki. And when he dies, he writes a will of what he has for her. So he says Miss Suzuki is responsible for his life. And he also uh, recognizes, you know, the good art that was done by Ono. So he is also frank. So we are told that he tells Ono that he appears to have held to his health, and he tells Ono that he should be fast in saying why he came, because he will need to rest soon. So that's also shows how frank he is. So again, when he comes to the villa, he also tells Ono to think about how he can put his art to use elsewhere instead of building a name. So there is also another character by the name Dr. Saito. So we are told that Dr. Saito is friendly, warm, and sociable. So he asks Ishiro how he was enjoying his visit and about the movie they were about to see. So another thing is that he says he was with Kuroda and he has mentioned Ono. And in case he meets him, he will mention having been with him. So Ono also enjoys interacting with him in 3 different meetings. That is as a neighbor, when they meet at the tram, and in the marriage negotiations. So Dr. Saito is also admirable. Ono testifies that in comparison to the Miyakes, he noticed the assured way Dr. Saito had responded to the slightly awkward situation. And he also says, that is Ono, also says that he was reassured to be dealing with the likes of Saito's family. There is also Mrs. Kawakami. So Mrs. Kawakami is the owner of a bar in the pleasure district that Ono commonly visits. She is a good friend to Ono. So Mrs. Kawakami is friendly and sociable. That is, she talks to her customers so much in a friendly way. She is also emotional. That is, when she sees Shintaro squeezing his cup on her doormat, she shouts at him and scolds his mannerisms. So there is the next character, that is Yasunari Nakahara. So Nakahara is also called the tortoise in the story and is known for slow painting. He is a friend of Ono, and in his youthful days at Morisan's villa, that is, he was a friend of Ono uh, at Morisan's villa in their youthful days. So Nakahara is also called the tortoise in the story uh, because of his slow painting, just as we have mentioned. So some of the character traits that Yasunari Nakahara portrays are the following. The first is that he is unique. We are told that while working at Takeda, he was extremely slow in how he made his paintings. So he's also humble. We are told that even when other artists criticize his slow pace in art, he could politely tell them to be patient with him, for he intended to produce quality work. So he says, I beg you to be patient with me. It is my greatest it is my greatest wish to learn from you, my superior colleagues, how to produce work of such quality so quickly. So another thing is that he pleads with these people 3 times over, but they persist to abuse and accuse him of laziness. So he is also honest. That is, his painting that Ono recalls is an extremely honest picture of himself. He agrees that he is slow, and that might be creating his poor standing in their eyes. So he's also honest while saying that. So another thing is that he is appreciative. We are told that many of Morisan's pupils mock him for being too slow in painting, but Ono defends him on the painting, and he thanks Ono for defending him against abuses and accuses of his tormentors at Takeda Farm. So he is also opinionated. That is, when Ono changes his painting style into a political on the nationalists' side, Nakahara distances himself from Ono, whom he believes is a traitor. So there is also Shintaro. We come across Shintaro in this episode. So Shintaro is naive. So remember, he also used to be Ono's pupil and protege. So Shintaro is naive. Ono testifies that he was ignorant about the cynicism about some things he talked about. So once he has run to Mrs. Kawakami's bar and joked about having liked a radical man who had been executed in war. So he's also said to be childlike. Another thing about Shintaro is that he is humble and polite. So he often greeted Ono politely, even when he came to request that Ono recommends for his brother. He was so humble in his approach. Then there is the last character that we come across, that is Jiro Miyake. So Jiro Miyake is a potential husband for Noriko. So he's shrewd. We are told that Ono says he was not confident about himself and must have pulled out of negotiations because he believed Noriko was far above him. So when he sees Ono again near his place of work, he's quite worried. Another thing about Jiro Miyake is that he is treacherous. He pulls out of marriage negotiations when they were almost coming to an end and never reveals to Noriko why they did so, even though they had shown they were a love match. So Noriko makes him reveal that his current marriage negotiations were almost coming to an end after he jails on her. So he's also opinionated, that is, he thinks people who had past mistakes relating to war should kill themselves, just like their company president did. So that marks the end of this session. It has been really long, but I want to thank you for staying with me till the end. So